Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Tsai. This is the Toyota Solutions studio, and I'm so pleased to meet Tina Hovsepian, who really created an amazing kind of temporary shelter. And she is the inventor of card Origami and now the board chair. She is also a 2015 Mother of Invention. Tina, it's really nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
We don't have an example of card Origami. So can you just describe what it is?
Sure. It's essentially a portable shelter that I designed. The material is treated cardboard and it's folded into an origami pattern so that the floor and the roof and the doors, they all open and close together with no assembly required.
Okay. What, obviously there's a large homeless population where you're from and where I'm from, LA.
Yes.
What inspired you to do this? You have a design background, I assume.
Yes, I'm an architect, and being born and raised in LA, I constantly encountered people living on the streets and begging and all of this, right? And so for me as a child, I just knew that when someone helped or gave $1 or whatever it was, I felt good. Mm-hmm. And when someone ignored the person or got upset about it, I felt bad, right? So
just started
it was
from
always
that basic,
yeah, it was always in the back of my head, like why is this even a thing? Like why are there people that don't have a place to sleep, you know? But I didn't think I could do anything about it until I went to architecture school. And I actually was able to study abroad, and when I visited countries that don't have the kind of infrastructure and the things that we take for granted in America, I realized that the situations happening in Skid Rows all across the country are worse than developing countries because they don't have to be that way, you know? So it made me really upset, and when I came back after that trip, it was specifically in Cambodia actually, I decided that I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know what it was going to be until I had this opportunity in class. It was a semester-long studio project, and that's when I developed the idea of card origami and folding cardboard to make a temporary shelter. So that's how I was inspired.
Obviously, it's derivative of origami,
yes,
the Japanese art of folding paper.
Right.
Why is it so important to have something like this in places in Cambodia where there are not homeless shelters and places where people, brick and mortar places?
So in LA, we have a general lack of housing, especially affordable housing. We also have a lack of shelter for people who are homeless. So
even in LA, this is, it's a problem. There's not enough shelters.
Right. I mean, actually, our vacancy rate is less than 4%. That drives up the cost of housing, and so more people are left with no options. And there are mass shelters and other types of transitional housing, but there aren't enough. We have over almost 60,000 people, and the new count is coming out, and we predict it's going to be more than that. And I was just in Charlottesville, and their population is 50,000.
In Virginia.
So our homeless population is larger than Charlottesville, right? It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. So my goal was to provide an alternative to typical mass shelters that would provide dignity and hope and privacy, things that you don't think of when you're trying to serve such a basic need. You're like, well, they have a shelter now, that's solved. But no, people, we're human, they're human too.
Right.
Like, it's crazy how people dehumanize.
While you're still limited with lightweight, or I don't know if it's lightweight, but you're still limited with
lightweight.
Cardboard. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you give a dignity and privacy? How did you design it?
I think as an architect, we're really creative, and it's possible to come up with something that looks good that isn't expensive. And that's what good architects do. That's what good design does. We're able to reverse innovate and provide something that's low cost and functional and still could look good, but doesn't have to be outrageously expensive. So that's my personal goal as a designer, and that's how I came up with it, with the material selection.
So take us back to 2015, and you're recognized as a Toyota Mother of Invention. What that means for you personally, and what it means for card origami.
So that was actually a really big milestone in my personal career and for the organization. And looking back at it now, a couple of years later, it's, you know, only in retrospect that you realize how big of a deal it was and how much of an impact it's had. So after that, you know, and with the grant that we got from Toyota, which was really helpful, it was one of our biggest grants at the time. And we were able to do some disaster relief work in Nepal, but besides that, like even just the fact of being associated, you know, with this conference and with Toyota, and then having all the publicity that we did have because of it, it got us in front of so many more supporters and so many other organizations that wanted to be a part of what we're doing and believe in the cause of really that there shouldn't be this crisis, this epidemic of homelessness. It really doesn't have to be this way. And we can all make some kind of difference, even if it's just talking about it.
And even if it's only a temporary solution.
Exactly.
So how big has your business grown since 2015, or your organization?
So at the time, we were all volunteer run, and I was the voluntary executive director. And we had a small board of 3, including myself. And right now, we actually were able to hire an executive director. Although she is part-time, we're still kind of bootstrapped. But she's been willing to kind of offer her time in that way. And then we have a full board of 5 people, 5 board of director members that have been donating, fundraising, and helping us get our programs out there more. And currently we actually have a proposal up on the LA 2050 website where we're suggesting that we could host emergency overnight shelters on sites like for example, a church's parking lot, right? Where we could set up a bunch of our shelters that are there's no impact, there's no footprint, and they really could just be there overnight for one night even, and provide like this safe place, protected from the elements, and provide privacy.
I was going to ask you whether it was protected from the elements. I believe I saw that early on it wasn't quite waterproof. Have you addressed that within the design?
So we have a treatment that makes it water resistant. It's not like 100% waterproof, but that's also not our intention, because they're meant to be temporary and still be recyclable. So we've looked at other treatments that make it waterproof, and we made the decision to go with a more environmentally friendly treatment that resists water, but it's still, you know, if it was flooded, it would collapse. Yes.
What does it feel like to actually climb in to a cardboard origami and rest your head and go to sleep?
It's actually pretty cool. It's bigger than you would think. So people are usually shocked when they get in. They're like, wow, it's actually more spacious than it looks. Also with the folding pattern of it, it's somewhat calming. I think like as humans, we like patterns, we like things that are organized. And so it has this like rhythmic pattern to the folds that kind of make you feel at ease when you're looking at it.
That's so important.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the dignity and hope aspect of the design that we provide.
What is your ultimate hope, whether it's with the company or with your impact on the problem of homelessness?
I've mentioned before, but I'm getting closer to potentially actually doing development. So I'm looking into mixed use, mixed income development, which would basically mean like a project that includes housing at various market rates, but also affordable housing, also low-income housing, potentially even homeless housing, and then in addition, retail or hospitality or social services, kind of all in the same project that becomes an ecosystem where it's all inclusive and it's also multiple sources of funding, multiple sources of revenue and return on investment.
And you're hoping to do that in Los Angeles?
Yes.
This pilot project?
Yeah.
Well, that sounds terrific, and there's certainly a need and a growing one in many parts of the world. Tina Hovsepian, thank you so much for joining us in the Solutions Studio. You're coming up with an incredibly innovative solution to a huge problem. Thanks for your time.
Having me.